Hello, folks, and welcome to another Plaid Stallions Toy Ventures. This week's topic is the Nomura action figure line from Starblazers, or Space Battleship Yamato, depending on what side of the ocean you're on. This one's kind of a personal one, so I'm going to dig into some history and tell you exactly why these matter so much to me. I grew up in a small suburb of Toronto, and at the cul-de-sac there was only one other kid, so logically we became best friends. His name was Neil. One of the greatest rituals from childhood I remember is going to Neil's house every day around 3 o'clock in the summer of 1980 to watch another chapter in the ongoing saga of Starblazers. It really appealed to me at 9 years old. It felt kind of more adult, and the fact that Neil and I were both so into that story, and it was a continuing story, it's just a wonderful piece of childhood. Flash forward to the turn of the century, and Neil passed away unexpectedly in an accident, so I never got to reconnect with him. If you're not to get heavy, but if you ever putting off a reconnection with an old friend, just do it now, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. So looking at Starblazers toys always reminds me of that happy summer. Flash forward to the late 90s, and I'm in a store called The Outer Limits. They used to advertise a lot in the Tomart and Lee's Action Figure Digest. Really amazing store. It was just like a candy store. You know, this is pre-internet, and you're really seeing stuff you've never seen before. And on one of those occasions, I remember walking by the cabinet and seeing the play set and the Derek Wildstar figure. And I had no idea these existed. They would have blown my mind as a kid. And I remember I didn't have any money anymore because I'd spent it all at Children's Theater. But I just kind of put a big red circle in my mind and said, go for that. Get that. Which took me about 16 years to actually act on that. The way I found the figures was I looked for them online for ages. I didn't know what they were called. Eventually I found the company name. But they're really few and far between on North American eBay. When they do come, they're really high priced, especially the playset. I started to methodically chase Japanese auctions, and it took me about a year to track every figure down. But what I discovered was the playset can be bought for a lot cheaper. Don't ever pay more than $200 for it. And the Derek and Nova figure, I use the U.S. versions of their names, they actually are fairly common in Japan, and you can pick them both up for about under $100. I've done it several times for friends. The tricky part are the last three figures, meaning Deathlock, Mark Venture, and Captain Avatar. They are really tough to find, and they do cost upwards of about $200, $250. They're not impossible, but Starblazers and Yamato is still very popular in Japan. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation where you're bidding against Japanese people who want this stuff just as much as you do. But I did find I got them a lot cheaper. The figures themselves are a collector's dream. I mean, they're sold in these little acrylic cases with their names etched on them. Absolutely beautiful packaging, and so collector friendly and so tidy. The playset itself is absolutely a joy. I mean, it looks just like the deck of the Argo, and it has lights and sounds. Sadly, I've put batteries in this, and the lights still work, but the sounds don't. So I'm going to play a clip from the commercial that Nomura released right now.
Engine 全開 Warp ヤマトの作戦指令室が今君のものに
I'll put a link to the commercial in the YouTube description as well, so you can see the whole thing. There's some really cool stuff on that channel. To top it off, Nomura also released a wind-up version of IQ-9, or Analyzer, the ship's robot, that is in great scale with the figures themselves. So you actually get 6 action figures in this line. It's a beautiful line of toys, and I highly recommend you going after it. But my advice would be, don't try to buy them here. Try to buy them in Japan. The playset alone usually sells for about $100 if you can find it. Whereas, I've had people tell me it's worth $2,000 over here. So there's a bit of a discordance there. I'd love to know what you think of these toys, whether you would have liked them as a kid. I know I sure would have. Or what you would like to see in action figures from Starblazers, if at all. Let me know on the YouTube comments section or on our Facebook page at Plaid Stallions, or drop me a line on Twitter at Plaid Stallions. Thank you all for watching again, and I'll talk to you next week.